All right, we're recording.
Awesome. Let's do this. So, hi, everybody. I am Ashley, and this is Roshana. We are going to have a wild conversation with each other, with the world today. I have no idea what to expect out of this conversation. We were doing a lot of talking and game planning, and ultimately, we just kind of decided let's just be us. So, here is your disclaimer. Please know this conversation is for adults, and I don't know what I'm going to say, and I don't know what she's going to say, so you're going to get what you get. And it's going to be good.
Folks.
Yeah, for grown folks only. So there might be some cursing, so sorry in advance if that's something that offends you, but we are just going to be ourselves because I think that the world deserves for us to be ourselves, and more importantly than that, we deserve to be ourselves today in a world that sometimes does not always want us to do that. So all of that to say, I'm going to provide an introduction about who I am, and then I'm going to turn it over to Roshana to let us know who she is and kind of where she comes from. And then we'll just see how this thing goes. So, yay.
Excited.
Awesome. So I'm Ashley Ertel. I'm a social worker. Whoop, whoop. LCSW. I'm licensed in Kentucky, but I live currently in Colorado and I work in Wyoming. It is interesting. I am in the military. Another disclaimer, no attribution from anything that I say goes to the Department of Defense. This is my words and my words only for sure today. And yeah, gosh, about me. So let's see, professional credits, right? I am a certified DBT therapist, a dialectical behavior therapy. Essentially, I work mostly with people who are in crisis. That's my jam. I love it. I stay very busy with work, whether it's through Talkspace, through the military. I'm also a lactation counselor because I love babies and I don't want to have any more. And so now I get to go hang out with everybody else's new babies and make sure all the babies get fed because that's super important. Yeah, that's kind of just my professional life. And I love what I do. Why I became a social worker is a long story and we don't have time for that. But essentially, I was inspired by another social worker when I was at a really, really dark place in my life. And her name was Christina. Christina just kind of like picked me up and was like, nah, girl, you got this. And I'm like, all right, I got this. I'm going to be a social worker. I'm going to do it. So here I am many years later. Yeah, so who I am as a human being, right? Because I think we all have our professional self. We have, our front stage, and then we have our backstage, the behind the scenes, the last minute issues with the wardrobe, right? Like, so my behind the scenes is Ashley, as I am a daughter to a Black mom from Selma, Alabama. I'm a daughter to a white dad from Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. So it's been an interesting life. I'm married to somebody who's also military. He's Army, I'm Air Force, so there's some clashing that goes on there. It's interesting. He's also a Giants fan, and I'm an Eagles fan. I don't know how we made this
Lots
happen.
of intersections there.
Lord, tell me about it. It's always a fight in my house, but over fun
Inner
things.
sports,
Yes, everything. Yeah, so we've got two kids. I have my 9, almost 10, and in like 2 weeks, she's going to be 10, my 10-year-old stepdaughter, Jasmine. Shout out to you. And then I've got my little 3-year-old guy, Knox. He is just a ball of energy and attitude. So he's sleeping right now. He might make a guest appearance at some point. We'll put the earmuffs on if that's the case. Yeah, I don't know. I just like to be myself. You can probably tell I'm quirky. I like to joke. My love language is sarcasm. So if ever there is a time to have a conversation and insert a sarcastic comment, I will be right there to receive it. Yeah. And that's me. So Roshana, I'm going to turn it over. Who are you?
Well, I have to follow that. So, my name is Roshana Chapel. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker.
Whoop,
Whoop whoop to the social workers. I also got a PhD somewhere along the line in social justice. So people don't really know what to do with me because I'm a clinician sometimes, and the other times I'm busy being an activist. But life is interesting and kind of interesting for me. Lots and lots of time. Little bit of my backstory. I was born and raised just outside of Los Angeles in Inglewood. People, I think lots of rap songs talk about Inglewood being up to no good, but Inglewood was really good when I was there. I was born to a 15-year-old single mom I was the first person in my family to go to college, and happy to say that I have a doctorate and I have two kids, um, 22 and 27. I know. My 27-year-old, I like to call my muse. She is deaf, and she also is a social worker. So she has a master's in social work as well. And she's one of the main reasons why I became a social worker. My youngest has a bachelor's in social work, and they use they them pronouns, are non-gender binary. So all of these different things that we think about when we're talking about working with different people, kind of advocating for different groups. For me, it's very personal, you know, because I'm married to a Black man. I have a Black brother. I'm Black. My kids are Black. One of my kids is deaf and the other one is queer. So I kind of look at the world from that perspective. And, you know, I work for Talkspace, and I'm also a college professor. So I think about all of the different people that I just have an opportunity to work with and touch, and all of the things that are going on in our world today really hits very close to home. So I'm so happy, and just I have so much gratitude to Ashley for just taking the time to talk to me today, so that her and I can just kind of put ourselves out there and see if anyone is feeling some of the stuff that we're feeling. Um, so now I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about what life has been like in 2020. At first, I was thinking we are going to talk about COVID. Then I was thinking we are going to talk about Black Lives Matter protest. Now I'm just like, you know what? 2020 is just the jam.
It's a mess. Also, sorry, there's like an angry bird.
I hear birds. I also have puppies barking around. So we are just here exactly who we are. So I have had a lot of people ask me, like, how are you doing? Like, what is, you know, what are you doing? How are you doing? And most particularly those people who either their life changed in a great big way. People are quarantining, people are not working. And, you know, for me, my job has just been much more busy than normal. You know, when quarantine happened, I was actually in London. I was visiting my youngest, who was doing an internship in London, visiting for spring break. You know, all of a sudden I heard the borders were closing. I needed to get home. I got home, and then 3 days later, I heard that my youngest, the internship was closing, and then they had to come home, which was really difficult because, you know, my kid had saved up. My kid had quit a job that they had been working at for Apple for a couple of years, and really had made this move to do this internship, which they loved. They were doing HIV testing. And so all of these things were really important, I think. And then I had to come home and move my class online, get my students together, and that was a really interesting thing in that. And on top of the fact that I'm an online therapist, so I started getting more clients. I started getting more consultations. I started getting people wanting me to talk to them about race. And it became incredibly overwhelming, you know, trying to manage feelings, trying to help my family, you know, shift to quarantine, and then trying to think about kind of um, where we're going in the world. I am naturally a very optimistic person, very hopeful about everything. I spend a lot of time trying to help my clients just know that, you know, things are going to be okay. And it became very difficult when I didn't know if things were going to be okay. So that's kind of my my story. Lots of celebrations in the house, lots of mask wearing, and lots of Zoom calls. So that's where I am. What about you?
Yes, definitely pro mask. Hashtag pro mask. Wear that thing. Gosh, how am I doing is such a loaded question. And I think I've given the same answer, like the same initial answer to every person every single day for the last like 3 months, that I am exhausted, like beyond a point of exhaustion that I have ever in my lifetime felt. So something, I guess, that to maybe put this in context, I have a chronic health condition, and one of the traits of that condition is exhaustion, right? Like this overwhelming sense of being tired. I'm more tired than I am from my POTS. Like it's just like a totally different level of mental and emotional tapped outness that like I don't even know how to describe. I came home from work on Friday, and my husband and my son were laying in the bed watching a movie, and I was like, y'all roll over because I need to go to sleep. It's 5:30 and I need this bed. So
too. And you
yes,
said exhaustion, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I promise you that is the word for 2020. Like that
yes,
is the word. People have asked me how I'm feeling, and I'm like exhausted,
yes, absolutely.
tired.
Yeah, it's like the only thing that I can really think of that accurately defines where I'm at, because it's both true in the physical sense and also in this mental, emotional, spiritual sense. This all these realms that we live in. Every part of my life I feel like is just I'm go 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 go, right? Like you were talking about people having extra clients. I also obviously have some extra clients on Talkspace, extra consultations with providers, extra community organizations calling and asking for input. I mean, it's just everywhere. Everybody is like needy right now, and that's not bad. It's just a fact, and we're human. And so at some point, you know, you kind of reach your limit. And I feel like every day I'm like, oh, I think this is my limit. And then the next day I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't it. Maybe this is my limit. Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm laughing at you and with you at the same time because I live in Florida. Like our governor is off the chain. The only way that I can put it, well, Florida,
Yeah.
live right near Disney World, which is closed. I mean, so let's think about what the world
Yeah.
looks like when you have people clawing at you and asking you to help them have all of these crazy conversations and all of these
Yeah.
things, and you are exhausted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting too. I don't know if you have experienced this. I'm sure in some way you have, but you know, so my husband is also Black, and his experience of the world is very different than my experience of the world. He's a Black immigrant to the United States as well. And so, um, you know, so I have my own world and my own things that I have going on. And then I come home and he's got his own stuff from the day too. And trying to like figure that out together is like a mess some days. And yeah, it just adds to that chronic exhaustion. So
So let me ask a question. Have both of you been working at home, or what's your kind of work situation look like?
yeah, also a hot mess. Okay, so let's see. So when COVID first kicked off, I was still going to work up in Wyoming, and my husband, he works from home. Like his job just works from home. And so that was great, except he is an IT guy for a company that is a retail, provider. And so all the retail stores shut down. So at some point, I can't remember, maybe a month or two into everything shutting down, he got laid off temporarily because all the stores shut down. They don't have any tech issues if they're not open. So, so then it was just us. And then my work decided that I can stay home because he also has a chronic health condition in addition to mine. So it just wasn't safe for us to be out and about. So then it was, the two of us and our 3-year-old in our home, which is a nice size home, but it is not where I would like to live with 2 other people with no distance for too long. I like space. I like to be able to go somewhere and not see or hear other people.
Absolutely.
So that was a challenge. So eventually we kind of got into a groove. Everything was going well. Then daycare shut down, and I was like, oh, now what are we going to do? Then we get into a new groove, and then a new daycare opens up, and Roshana knows that was just a hot mess. Like, okay, it's gonna rain too.
The weather's not communicating either. I mean, 2020. What the
heck? 2020 is like,
oh
my God. So that was a mess with the new daycare. And anyway, now we're in a situation currently where my husband is back to work with his company from home. I'm back in Wyoming. My kid is having part-time daycare, and it's just, it's interesting. We're piecemealing it together.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you because I'm thinking about, it feels like March was a year ago, when
Yes.
things started shutting down, you know, because I was teaching one class at the university and one class online already. You know, my class at the university, I basically said, hey, I'll see you after spring break, and I haven't seen them again. You know,
Yeah.
so I had to put people online, which I'm very, very, I mean, technology is fine, but when you have students who were living, you know, in the dorm or living on campus or even getting their internet from campus, it was a mess. I actually had a couple of students that actually had to go back into very unsafe homes. A couple of students who are gay, who weren't received by their families, you know, and one, you know, just fell off the earth for 3 weeks, missed major assignments. I'm emailing them, trying to figure out where they are. And finally they call me and, you know, say, you know, Dr. Chapel, I had to go home, and I told myself I would never go home unless I was dying, and I was homeless and I was hungry, you know. And so having to deal with that type of thing actually puts you in a space in which you can't, you know, it's not about me anymore, because I'm trying to make sure that my kid is okay. You know, my kid is my student, my student, my kids. Those are my kids too. And then, you know, my husband started working from home, and he has 15 employees. So luckily, we have space in our house, which is a privilege. You know, we were empty nesters for a while, and so when our youngest came back from London, you know, they came in a room and they started working. They had to finish a senior thesis. My husband went into our loft. I went into my office. But it was really interesting because a lot of my students, literally, my students were like, do I have to turn on my camera on the Zoom? You know, because I had Zoom calls. Um, I have family members, they're loud, we're in the same room. And it was interesting because I had to kind of adjust everything to make sure that they understood that it was okay for them to just be able to just log in. Like, I don't need to see you. I don't need to hear you per se. I just need for you to be, you know, here. I just need for you to be on the call so that you can get your education. And it was just a really, really interesting thing. And I didn't think about it until actually having a student say to me, you know, at the chapel, I am sitting on my bed and you got a whole ass office. I like, it was, it was real, you know, because I was like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. I don't know what it is that you're going through. And I think that that was really why Ashley and I wanted to do this. We wanted to be able to just talk about like some of the stuff.
So
So,
much.
how mentally are you dealing with this?
Ah,
Before I ask.
So, okay, so I moved inside and I'm in my basement. So I am sorry for the echo, but there was this lightning that struck that was way too close for me to feel comfortable in a metal chair. So how am I mentally functioning and coping? That one's interesting. I think that sometimes when you get into crisis mode, just like what you were talking about, it's easier to cope mentally because you don't have to cope mentally. So it's like, well, I'm jumping from this fire to this fire.
Compartmentalization.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really good at that. Avoidance is my jam. Do not recommend, right? 10 out of 10 don't recommend it. So, okay. So the things that I do for myself are things like this. Like, oh my, we've talked, I don't even know, like a handful of times over the last few weeks, just venting of like, oh my God, do you know what they said to me today? And so people like Roshana have been so helpful. And I have lots of other friends. My best friend, Mackenzie, is like, I swear, we talk every single day. And I'm like, oh my God, girl, you have no idea what is going on. So that has been my lifesaver, is just having people to download all this crap to, because I can't keep all this shit straight in my head every day. And then the other thing that I do for myself is we just don't watch the news if it's been a bad day. Like, it's just not going to happen. If I am exhausted, that TV is going to be watching the trashiest Real Housewives shit you ever seen. Like, I am not, like, I'm straight up Tiger Kinging it until I can get to the next day.
My husband and I were just watching Westworld, and we have no idea what the hell is happening right now, but we're like, some good stuff right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but what about you, Roshana? What are you doing to keep yourself mentally whole?
I do, and I don't want to sound like the therapist, but like every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day, I ask myself how I am. Like, how are you doing? Are you feeling this? And learning how to say no better. My boundaries are usually pretty good. Lately, it's just really been hard saying no to people and saying no to things. I mean, I do a lot of training in the area of cultural competence and anti-racist work. So I have lots of people who, they want trainings, and so part of that, just to be transparent, feels really bad, because I'm like, all of a sudden now you want to talk, like, I think about people who I've tried to have conversations to about different things, and yes, sometimes this stuff makes people uncomfortable. I totally get that, but we live in this body. Like, I tell people all the time, I live in this body every single day, and I walk around with, I have a PhD tattoo on my head. So depending on the day of the week, I may have someone talk to me like I'm an idiot, or look at me sideways because I'm trying to go to the store, right? And so that's the reality of our job. So I take in as much as I feel like I can. For the most part, when I don't want to work anymore, I don't. I will take a time out in a minute. I'm like, I need to take a minute. I need to take a time out or something. I am working on putting my boundaries back up because I let them down big time when we went into quarantine, because I just felt like so many people were hurting. And the number one thing has been white people wanting me to help them talk about race to other white people, which I think is really strange. I'm just gonna put that out there. My father loves Trump and I think he's crazy. How do I do this? And so it's different.
Like, I don't know. It's not my daddy.
but when your clients are asking you to do that, you can't really, and it's really hard for my clients of color, right? Because they are really, really hurting and not really sure about how to do this. So I think the biggest thing is self-care, self-care, self-care. I've seen this awesome video saying self-care is just taking care of yourself, drinking water, going to sleep, not taking in too much social media, saying no, kind of doing those things. And I think that's what I'm doing, and just really managing day to day, asking myself how I am today and if I have the bandwidth to handle it.
Yeah, for sure. You said something that resonated with me like so hard, and now I'm like kind of mad at you because I'm like, damn it. She saw something in me that I didn't want to talk about.
Okay.
You said
we said we're gonna be transparent.
Oh my God. I don't even remember exactly what you said, but it's this idea of, if not me, then who, right? And so like this, because we're helpers, that's like, we got into this career field because we want to help people. And I find myself all the time, I get asked to do something and I'm like, I have to do this because if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Who's going to fill this gap that needs to have a bridge? And if I'm not that bridge, who the hell is going to be that bridge? I'm the only Black person in my office that can do this, or whatever the case may be, right? And that is, and I got to stop doing that. You talked about boundaries, and I'm a DBT therapist, for God's sake. Like, I live in the world of boundaries.
Situations in which we walk into in which we're the only Black, right? I just got tenure in my university. So happy, yay! But I got it in quarantine, and I'm the only Black professor in my college. Right? That's stupid.
It is
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I'm in Florida, right? So I'm like, come on, people need to do better. So, what do we do? How do we continue to put out our boundaries, right? How do we say no? I tell my clients all the time, get a no journal, right?
Yes.
I tell them, write in your no journal, say no. Every time you said yes when you should have said no, write it down. Do I do that?
No. I put that one in the no journal.
Yeah. Do I do that, right? So, I said, hey, here is my line, and this is what
Yeah.
I'm going to do for myself, right? Because how many times do we put, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't
Yes,
do this. You can't do that.
I know.
Um,
Yeah, I found myself asking for trades, like the whole like barter system. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that for you, but how are you gonna get this thing done for me? Like, yeah,
absolutely.
you want me to run that group? I will totally run that group. I need someone to cover this one because I can't do both
I can't.
or whatever.
But
Yeah, so I'm
I
like,
did hear you say no a couple of times. So
yeah,
you have been
I'm practicing.
practicing no. We're gonna practice no together. Um,
Yes.
so I guess in this conversation that was supposed to be short, that's just going. What are some last things that we want people to think about us, about Black social workers? Like, we're Black social workers. Like, come on,
Yes.
what does this mean to us in this world right now? You're wearing a
Yeah.
shirt that says "My son's life matters." I'm
Heck
wearing
yeah, it does.
I'm wearing a sign language Black Lives Matter shirt, because
Yeah.
intersectionality matters. Um,
Yeah.
what does this mean? If we could just have a sound bite.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it means just for everybody who's out there that we exist. I think that there's not enough representation. Roshana talked about being the only Black professor in her college of social work, okay, in Florida.
College of Health
Representation.
Professions. No, not the School of Social Work. The
Oh, the
College
college.
of Professions.
Oh my God. That's so much. And so, yeah, and so we are here, we exist, right? We're exhausted and we're here for you, right? We have space for you because we are with you in this. So that is what anybody who's out there watching, I want you to just know that we're here.
Okay. So just to follow up on that, I would just say that I have created so many lists, and there's so many lists out there. Um, I know that it is uncomfortable to have conversations about race with people of color. I know that it is hard to have a conversation with your racist cousin or
Mhm.
your grandfather who was born a while ago or whatever. I have had students come up to me saying, my grandfather is in the KKK, help me. I'm like, now for my students, yes, that is my responsibility to help them, right?
Mhm.
But it's not my responsibility to help my peer figure out how to have a conversation or how to just ask me if I'm doing all right? They'll say, well, I might say the wrong thing. Well, if you say nothing, you've said a lot. So
Right.
ask. If it's something that can be Googled, Google it, but don't stay silent. Don't watch someone be harassed or, be ridiculed or have somebody talk about their hair and you don't say anything. Just say something. And then, if you said the wrong thing and the person tells you shouldn't have said that, then, apologize and say, how should I have said it? We're not crazy creatures like people would say. We're not barbarians. A lot of the times we are the ones that are out there trying to help people. And that's all we want to do. So, compassion, love, caring. And if you don't understand, just listen.
Yes.
That's it. Just listen. That's all we want sometimes, is just to be heard. I don't want to sound like a commercial for social workers.
Cue the Talkspace logo.
The heart. Any last words, my lovely sister?
No, I think we've said all the things right now, and we could talk forever. I know that if they heard our conversation for the hour before we hit record,
Yes.
there's always something else. But I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to share this space with Roshana and with everybody else who's on our team. And yeah, if you need us, we are here.
Yes, and we're happy to have all the conversations and to say all of the things. And we're also happy to tell you no if we're tired.
Yes.
So that's it. I think from Roshana and Ashley. Um,
Peace out.
peace.